Welcome to Overwatch. This time we're going to be talking about the current flavour of the month hero and ways of stopping her, D.Va. It's always interesting to me when one of these heroes that was out of the meta for a while suddenly jumps back in. Whether it's because their counters got nerfed or because they got buffed, it doesn't really matter, but the tipping point usually shoves them from into oh god, please make it stop. And D.Va is kind of there at the moment. I'll mention now nice and early in the video, by the way, for your sake. If you are going to comment and use the word D.Va, do not type D.Va with the full stop in the middle. YouTube thinks it's a link and thinks you are just trying to spam away. So don't do that, just use it without the dot. Anyway, but before we get on to stopping her, let's just retrace how she got into this state where she's taking over games. Understanding that is a good way of then disentangling why she's so mighty. First, the defense matrix will swap to a toggle on and off thing, rather than simply activating for a few seconds and then going on cooldown. This gives her a huge amount of defensive flexibility. We'll spend a while on the defense matrix and the issue with it later. Next, Zenyatta did get nerfed. Hell, tank busting in general in Overwatch is kind of direly underpowered at the moment, part of why the tanks are so strong in the meta overall, and so when D.Va gets a whole heap of extra survivability with a hit point buff and some extra killing power, it's no surprise that she starts taking over. Also, just for you pedants out there, her ultimate did also get nudged into a more usable state a while ago, but it's not a major factor here in her power. Three things combined to make D.Va so goddamn tanky: her ability to mitigate almost all damage sources in the game with a single button, high mobility, and her large health pool. Namely that if she starts dropping low, she can very quickly get out and very quickly stop most, if not all, of the damage coming her way. The key to beating D.Va though comes in one or two flavours right now, with a potential third waiting on the sidelines depending on game balance in the future. The first is by simply overwhelming her. This largely depends on the circumstances. If D.Va is playing around a Reinhardt barrier, for example, doing this takes an incredibly long time, as you have to both burn down the defense matrix and burn down the Reinhardt barrier. Just remember that the defense matrix is a finite resource, and Soldier 76, for example, is pretty good at just forcing D.Va into running low with the amount she has left over. The hard part is, of course, the actual kill. Ana healing, for example, plus D.Va means that she can usually survive for long enough that she can get the defense matrix back up, so you generally need this second aspect in beating D.Va, which is something to go through the matrix or some form of crowd control. Roadhog is my personal favourite. The hook just pushes right through it and stuns her for actually a few good seconds in the process of her getting stunned, dragged in, and then hit by Roadhog. The very moment the hook connects, tunneling damage into her is incredibly important. If you get her to around 250 hit points after all, Roadhog should just be able to blast her out of her mech with a single button press. Once it's gone, great, job done, and then we'll talk about what to do with mini D.Va later on in the video. If you're running D.Va, you absolutely want to be running something that can just slam right past the defense matrix anyway. Roadhog, Zarya, Mei are all my personal favourites. Reinhardt can do it, but he gives up a lot if he's going on dealing with D.Va duty. We've done Roadhog in specific already, so let's talk about some of the others. As Zarya, you want to abuse her close range damage as much as possible. D.Va at minimum range absolutely tears things apart and rather nicely charges your particle cannon incredibly quickly. D.Va can also do nothing to stop you just building graviton surges off her aside from trying to run away. Try to match D.Va's movements, make sure that any time she gets outside of her Reinhardt barrier is limited, because you are there in position trying to cut her out of her mech as soon as possible. Just remember that D.Va is also going to be focusing just as much on you. Be very cautious about using your ultimate, wait for chances where D.Va isn't around or is demech'd, and communicate to your team that you need her to be demech'd or absent from the fight before dropping your ultimate. With Mei, you'll find your job turns more into deterrence. You can't really kill D.Va, but if she gets greedy, you can freeze her, and then hopefully the rest of your team can combine and blow her out of the mech. A good D.Va should be able to get away from you about 90% of the time, but it usually means any dash in has to basically be another dash out moments later. If she is frozen, then, well, just like Roadhog before, she has to become a priority target for you and everybody else. Removing D.Va gives you so much space in a big fight that, well, doing anything else is kind of absurd. Finally, I do want to touch on Reinhardt. With Reinhardt, you always have a very tricky decision. Fighting D.Va means dropping your barrier. Keeping your barrier up, though, is probably going to be a bit short-lived as she just tunnels damage into it. I tend to let mine drop to about 100 or 200 hit points before I start to swing, and if it gets destroyed, I might even be looking very hard for a charge onto her. If D.Va does get somewhere where charging won't run you miles away from your team, it is absolutely one of the best ways of finishing her off. Just make sure she doesn't have time to dodge away, as she can just go up and over you or just dodge to the sides without breaking a sweat if she does see you coming. Otherwise, every now and then giving her a love tap with your hammer is not a bad idea at all, and it builds up your earth shatter nice and quickly. Another great way of disabling D.Va. Once she's demech'd, she will also just pretty much instantly die if you want to keep swinging. If you aren't playing those 4 characters though, do keep in mind a few things. Defense Matrix is a narrow cone in front of her. The graphic actually makes it look a little bit larger than it really seems to be. If she's looking up, for example, hitting her feet is generally very possible and very variable. And that's great advice, by the way, for where to land an sleep dart on her. And she will always be vulnerable from the rear. One final note about blowing her out of the mech: if you're playing a tank like Winston or even Reinhardt, and your team is in full brawl mode, like you're all fighting all over the place on the point, where you're prioritizing getting kills over tanking, position yourself between D.Va and Ana. This is vital for all tanks to learn, really. D.Va getting healed by Ana is next to impossible to destroy without major focus from your team, and honestly it's just too much effort to really bother with. If you're a big character or have barriers to deploy, try to block that healing source. It's really important and a really good idea to do on a lot of focus targets as well. It's just a good habit to get into. Discord Orb helps, of course, kind of goes without saying, but insta-locking Zenyatta just because they have a D.Va is something I'm a little bit wary of saying. If they're tank heavy though, definitely feel free, he's a viable choice and he's there for a reason. But on the topic of traditional tank busting, one trap I want people to be wary of is Reaper. One reason why Reaper is falling out of favor is actually the rise of D.Va. What Reaper likes to do is run right up to people, blow them away with his high damage output, and then wraith form to safety so he isn't punished for the overextend. D.Va makes that not work. Reaper runs up, does 0 damage output because defense matrix is there, and then either wraith forms or dies. While Reaper is great against all the other tanks, against D.Va's high armor and damage block he's rather lackluster. McCree is honestly the better choice. You can chain crowd control easily with others and keep her pinned for as long as possible, or catch her with a flashbang, for example, if she tries to turn around and jet away. With her big head hitbox as well, plinking away the left clicks isn't too bad if she does try to get up close and personal. There is, of course, a third option. An option spoken only about in legend, a mythical beast that exists in fairy tale. This chick. Sombra's hack ability basically shoves D.Va onto the instant back foot. She can't do anything. The issue is, well, Sombra's lack of damage and overall obscene difficulty to play very well, unless she gets buffed. She's very much on the back burner in terms of D.Va counters. If you see a hack D.Va though, for the love of God, please tunnel it, focus it, and kill it. You've picked up on the theme by now, right? I hope. Crowd control and burn her away. Wear her down with little bits and pieces of damage until Roadhog lands the hook, then surround her and kill her to cut off the Ana and make sure that she can't just escape. When you do get her out of the mech though, you've got a choice to make. If the fight is winding down, don't rush to kill her. Bunny Blaster D.Va is often the lone survivor of a teamfight, and sure, she hurts a bit, but not enough to really overwhelm any major healing source. Outside of the mech, she provides decent damage, but nothing really else. No more huge zoning tool, no more close range burst, just forced to plink away from a distance. The more you can keep her out of her mech, the better, and it's a real trap for people in Bunny Blaster D.Va mode to try and run away and survive as much as they can. You want to get that mech as fast as possible, so if you are playing D.Va, just throw yourself off a cliff or something as soon as you can. Trust me, you are way more valuable that way. Right now, I dare say that D.Va is a little bit overbuffed. She didn't need the extra 100 hit points and extra killing power with her increased movement speed while firing. I think a lot of people knew that once you did tip into the meta, Defense Matrix would quickly become one of the most loathed abilities in the game. As an aside, it has an inherently anti-fun nature to it, just deleting things without any satisfaction. Well, at least against barriers, for example, you're hitting things, so you get that satisfaction. Outside of the game, sure, I'd love to see Defense Matrix maybe tinkered with or a hit point retune, but inside of the game, put all that shit outside your mind. It isn't relevant while you're in a match. D.Va isn't suddenly going to become weaker midway through. You've got to play around her, find the stun, keep her Defense Matrix on low charge, surround her, punish any overextension, and hopefully, down the line, Blizzard might nerf that. See what I did there? Thanks for watching to the end. I have been Josh as OneAmongstMany, and this has been all about beating up a tiny Korean girl. Hopefully it was somewhat useful. If you've got further advice, feel free to post it in the comments below. Toodles.